This is the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and you are listening to Potsy and Tino on the Potsy and Tino Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Pots and Pans Network brings to you its tag team champion of the world. That's right. The road dog Tino Gray is not with us at the moment. He might be with us later. I'm not quite sure. Fact of the matter is, Tino is having technical difficulties because of a storm in the Raleigh market right now. So out in Apex, he's lost power and internet. I am sitting here with both at the moment, but if the show just randomly goes off the air, you know why. Also, as you can see, I got Tino a nice co-captain's chair, and he's not here tonight. He was going to do it from home. So with that stated, our theme song is always brought to you by Adam's House Cat. It's called The Wrestling Song. It's available on iTunes for 99 cents. Want to thank the American Nightmare, your undisputed world champion, Cody Rhodes, for the lead-in to tonight's show. And I guess with that, I will get started with what we always do at the beginning of the night. Hello, guys. What is going on? Both Chris Barrett and Michael Turner. As always, we start the show with what's up with you. Lots been going on. Not necessarily anything crazy good, crazy bad, anything like that. Like I mentioned, right now, the Raleigh market's having a nasty weather storm. It's not really that bad in terms of like how much rain is coming down, but it is windy and it's cold, which is the first cold we've really had. And Michael can probably attest to it. He might not have rain out where he is in the Rocky Mount market, but over where I'm at, I think that it is pretty darn nasty. So trying something new out with the microphone as well. I've got it just sitting right here in my cup holder. So hopefully that's working a little bit better for you guys as well. We're streaming to you right now, live, YouTube, Twitch, and the Facebook page. So if you're in the audience, by all means, jump into the chat, give a little thumbs up every so often, make us feel good about ourselves. So once again, Tino may or may not be joining us. He was without internet. Then he got his internet back about 15 minutes before we were supposed to go live. He took a phone call. By the time he got off the phone, he had lost power and internet. So he is currently indisposed. I will be trying to get updates from him on my cell phone. I did tell him he could join from his phone and look like an old school Blair Witch Project movie if he wanted to do that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. If he doesn't have power, he might not be able to get enough light to be able to be seen. So we'll just run it the way we always do, and that's the case. And we'll start with what's up with me right now, just so everybody knows. There's been this thing going on at the department that I work in at NC, in the state department at North Carolina, and that's right now they've got a bunch of people that are temp employees. And I'm one of them. And my contract is through June of next year right now. But, that's more than likely. Chris Barrett from a remote location. He's like the weatherman tonight. So, they're trying to convert a bunch of the positions from temp positions into perm positions. So I had to fill out an application and everything for that to basically skip through some of the stuff. And today I received something as soon as I walked into the office, which my office is downstairs at my house, by the way. Walked into my computer, got logged on, and I had an email telling me that something on my application wasn't completed, so I needed to go ahead and finish that by tomorrow. So I went ahead, finished all that stuff. Yeah, Tino, I have the Fortress of Solitude here, and Tino has other stuff going on. Chris, I think you're right, because they've pretty much told us that they need my department. The thing I'm worried about is there's a pay displacement based on, and this is just common knowledge with a lot of these state positions, but when they're not permanent positions, they're not giving you benefits, so they give you more pay than what you then yeah, he's Tino. Yeah, he's the Tino Mobile. Which if you read Zora, you actually saw the Tino Mobile. It was a truck, but so I had applied for a different position as well, and that was the position that they were actually asking me to update everything on. And I took the time to actually like fill in like everything that over the past 4 months that I've been at this job that I actually have completed. And I'm assuming that when they actually see that, they're going to be like, "Wow, this guy actually gets work done." Which you were both here. You heard me talk about how some people don't. So I won't say anything else about that, just because like I don't think anybody from the States actually watching this, but you never know. So and Michael and Chris both, thank you for the kind words. I again, I know that they need us in those positions, so I totally anticipate that one of these offers will come my way. And if it's the offer for what I got the application notice from today, it would set me up nicely. So we'll just put it that way. Otherwise, I might have to sell a kidney or something. I don't know. But anyways, again, my contract is good until June of next year, regardless. So I don't have anything really to worry about there. But you know, again, they need us for what we're doing. They're giving us a lot of work, a lot of projects, and there's only 2 of us. It's me and my boss. So, comic book wise, Jay Hammond, the artist on Died Hard, actually gave me the news I think yesterday that he's going to start laying out issue 3 of Died Hard, and wanted to know like if I wanted to go a little bit darker and grittier with some of the stuff, and I told him absolutely. So old Peter Cottontail, we might have a joke about a rabbit's foot somewhere in there. Stay tuned. Obviously, the first issue next at the end of this month, it'll be in preview, so you'll be able to order your copies of it. Bunch of different covers, bunch of cool covers. And for the metal cover, I went ahead and I've noticed that with metal covers, if you have white ink on them, it like makes it so you can't see the metal. So anywhere that the cover that I want to do a special metal edition, like for private sales and things like that, that one I actually removed all the white ink from it. So it's just it's one of the white on black drawings that I like to do. You guys have probably seen them if you checked out my Instagram or anything. But it's going to be one of those drawings, except all the white is removed, so it's just got the black ink on it. And where you see Peter Cottontail's face and the blood, you're just going to see the blood and the metal, which I think is going to look really fucking cool. So I'm super excited to see what that actually looks like on an actual metal cover, as well as on holofoil covers, which obviously are going to be much more reasonably priced. So I'm excited about that as well. Got my buddy Dominic, who has been on the show at least once, maybe twice. In the past. He'll be coming into town this week and staying at the house. So that'll be interesting because I haven't seen him since probably either really early this year or late last year. So it'll be great seeing him come into town. If he's in town Monday, we'll try to have him on the air, but I think he's leaving Sunday. So I think he's coming in Wednesday, leaving Sunday. And then I've got another friend named Nikki coming into town who I haven't seen since the last time I went to Florida. So that was probably a year and a half ago at this point. She's now got a baby and everything. So that'll be interesting. I think she's going to leave the baby with family so that she can actually hang out with some friends, but we'll see. I know that I'm going to try to get together with both of them at least once this week. Dom obviously will be staying with me, so I'll see him most evenings, but the daytime stuff, like obviously I'll be at work. So if you guys want, go ahead in the chat, tell me what's been going on with both of you. You know, it's one of those things where this show is interactive. So Chris Barrett, that is something I would not ever put out there. There's always a possibility that I have at least a kid, but nobody nobody has ever actually claimed that one was mine that I know of. So I don't think we have anything to worry about there. And when it comes to my friend Nikki, no, her and her husband Mike are good people. Nikki's one of my favorite people in the entire world. So, and then before the show went on the air tonight, I went and I saw Beetlejuice. So I'd been meaning to go see it. My friend Tessa and I said we were going to go see it together. We kept having plans not work out because, well, I got really, really drunk on Saturday watching Notre Dame football and taking Ubers to and from the bar. So that was always good. But not too much on Michael Turner's end, just stuff going on. Watching football in WWE, yeah, me too. Chris Barrett, so I still have a job, and within 36 hours of our show, I had 3 jobs. Hey, I mean, there you go, man. Like, I'm going to tell you, I was out of work for a year. In fact, it was, I think based on when my severance package ran out, I was literally paid or not paid for an entire year. So good job on the 3 job opportunities. I know you didn't really go into what was going on with the job, but you know, a job in this market is tough to have. So keep it up. And you know, if you did anything silly, stupid, or anything like that, just keep it to yourself. But yeah, so I went to go see Beetlejuice. I'm going to say that if you like the first one, you should like the second one. There's not really the plot is pretty much the same plot that was in the first one. It's Beetlejuice is trying to get married to Lydia, and there's other stuff going on. The interesting thing about it is that Winona Ryder probably looked the best she's looked in a movie in a long time. And I don't know if it's because of how much makeup they put on people in these films. Chris Barrett just said, I almost get fired on Monday, and by the time I went back to work on Wednesday, I had 3 opportunities. No, it's fine. A moist maker. I don't know what that is. I'm taking that off the screen so we don't get banned. But yeah, so if you like the first Beetlejuice, I think that you would like the second Beetlejuice. It's Tim Burton straight up all the way. What I thought was really interesting about it was Miles Miller and Alfred Gough were the writers of the script for it. And if you know anything about those guys, they obviously were the 2 that were the executive producers and main writers on Smallville. But then just recently, Tino and I were talking about a show called Into the Badlands, and they were the creators, writers, and executive producers on that show as well. So I mean, right now they've got some stuff going on with what they're coming out with, and most of it's been pretty good. So I felt like they really understood the characters in the movie. They didn't have the one that played Charles in it because, well, apparently that guy had some weird sexual stuff going on. Oh, Moist Makers from Friends, gotcha. So Charles wasn't in it. They did have a way to actually have the character in the movie, but not have him in the movie. It's a sandwich. Okay. I was never a Friends guy, so I always liked what Larry David said about it because they were supposed to do a crossover episode, the final season of Seinfeld, with one of the first early seasons of Friends, and Larry David actually quit Seinfeld because he said all you did was copy my fucking show and put hot people in it. So I kind of felt that same way. It really did seem like the same exact show. In fact, NBC went back into that like realm multiple times. Things like Mad About You, Friends, you know, and other shows that ended up coming. And it's interesting to see that they really don't have a lot of those comedies actually playing out anymore, the way that they used to make Thursday night like a night of comedy, until ER, I guess, which apparently I don't know if you guys have ever been like medical drama fans, but the creators of ER, I guess, are being sued by Michael Crichton's wife or ex-wife, or I guess widow, because he was the creator of ER, and they're now trying to create a new show called like Pittsburgh Med or something like that, and it's supposed to be like it's even got like executive producers. It's got Noah Wiley attached to it. It's got a bunch of stuff. So they're like, this is just a continuation of ER, and he should be paid for that. So pretty interesting that was a story that I read up on. College football. You know, I know that this is a wrestling show, but college football, obviously, I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. And, you know, they lost last week to Northern Illinois 16-14. Northern Illinois has now moved up to 23 in the rankings. So they're still behind Notre Dame in the rankings, but they're also a mid-major conference team. So everyone thinks they never should have actually had a chance to beat Notre Dame. But Notre Dame goes into Purdue this week and utterly destroys them 66-7 in what was... I'm going to say this. If you had read my text messages, you would have thought Notre Dame was down 66-7 in the game, because I was furious with how bad the game looked from the perspective of a Notre Dame fan wanting Notre Dame to throw the football. And they ran for 378 yards, and they're talking about how they're back, and yet they are absolutely dreadful in the air until they remove the starting quarterback for the second stringer, which, good news for them. If they go up 42-0 like they did in the first half of this game, we'll end up having plenty of time to see the second string quarterback throw touchdowns, because that's what he did right there. Chris Barrett said that he used to watch House. It reminds me of my grandmother. She loved House. You know what? House, I always wanted a crossover episode of Scrubs and House where, and I didn't even need like them in the doctor's office. I wanted Perry Cox to go on to a trip where he was at a medical conference, and he would bump into Dr. House, and then somebody would have like a heart attack or whatever, and the two of them would have to figure out what was going on with it. And I always thought seeing the two of them banter back and forth would have been absolutely amazing, because you know, House would sit there and tell Cox, I can't believe you actually make up girls' names for him all the time. Why don't you just call them numbers like I do at 13 over here? You know, like different things like that would have been absolutely insane, but it would have been incredible. In fact, just one episode of one of those shows, like I said, a medical conference where chief of medicine, or, you know, they have to send somebody, and House, because he's in trouble, is the guy that they have to send on that trip. I would have absolutely loved it. Then you have like Anthony Edwards show up from ER. You have Katherine Heigl from Grey's Anatomy or whatever, you know, and you just have them all show up, and they're all sitting there just, you know, talking shit about their hospitals or whatever. I thought that would have been absolutely incredible, but never happened. Yeah, so that's really all that's been going on with me. Like I said, my buddy Dom's coming in this week. Oh, I did get so the reason why this chair's here, obviously this is going to be Tino's co-pilot chair when we do our episodes of the show. I bought a new chair, and I really wanted to tell Tino this story, but, you know, he's obviously not here, so he's going to have to watch the episode to get this story now. But I got home from watching the football game on Saturday, and like I said, I drank way too much. Had a hangover all day yesterday. Didn't end up doing what I was supposed to do yesterday. Either of the sets of plans that I was supposed to do yesterday. I just basically took an easy day and I watched the final season of Billions again. But I got my brand new office chair for downstairs in my living room where I have my office stuff. And I decided after I got home that if I was going to drag the thing into the house, I was going to try to put it together that night. And if you want a good piece of advice, guys, don't ever try to put together office equipment when you're hammered. I didn't injure myself. I didn't do anything like that. But the next day when I came downstairs and it looked like I would have had to turn upside down to fit in the chair and actually sit in it. Like it looked like something out of like a weird like pet bed or something by the time I got done making it. It was not a pretty sight. So I had to take the entire thing apart. Not the entire thing, but I had to take most of it apart, turn it all around, put it all back together, and then build it the next day. So I built my new chair. It's got 6 massage things in it. It's got heating, although I really just want a chair that has air conditioning. I don't know about you guys, but like this thing, Tino was here last week and he goes, Rob, you sweat like a motherfucker when you're in that chair. And I'm not sweating right now, but by the end of this episode, because the air conditioning obviously is really pushed and focused downstairs, and then heat rises, this room is a little bit warmer. Having all the computer equipment's definitely warmer. That kind of sucks. But and yeah, Barrett, I completely agree. It would have, Cox and House would have been absolutely amazing. And just imagine them having to talk down to Bob Kelso and Cuddy would have been even better. I just, it would have just been amazing. And you know, I wonder if that, I know obviously like House was on Fox, but I think House was made by Universal, so they could have actually played around with the idea of doing that until Scrubs ended up going to ABC. So either way, with that, everybody, I think it's time to start talking about pro wrestling. So the first thing I want to talk about is Smackdown moving to the USA Network. I haven't seen the ratings for last week, but the reason, you know, like all the talk going on was that WWE, WWE's highest rated show obviously was Smackdown. So when Universal started looking at how much money they wanted for, or when Universal started looking at how much money they wanted to spend on weekly wrestling shows, they really thought long and hard about it. I mean, I think they said, what was it, 1.4 billion for over the 5 years that they were going to get SmackDown this time. So a 40% increase over what Fox paid for SmackDown the last time. And well, you think Michael says that he thinks it was a good move having them move over to USA. I do and I don't. If anybody took notice to what Fox actually put on TV last Friday, they went back to, you know, instead of FS1 having it, they started carrying just straight up college football on Friday nights. So Friday nights are going to be a big win for Fox if they have big games to put on Friday nights. It'll be interesting to see if they actually do put some of the bigger games on. I know that ESPN's contract on Thursday night college football gets them some good games, but now you have NFL on Thursday night, so you might not see as big of games on ESPN, but if they're on different, you know, I think Thursday night football is on Prime. So my point here with SmackDown, though, is I noticed something right off the bat that was different. The presentation seemed different, not just the sets or anything else, but the presentation seemed different. It seemed new. It seemed fresh, which was nice because obviously they still have the same commentators with Michael Cole and Corey Graves on there, but it just felt fresh to me. I also noticed that at the very end of the show, and I don't know if anybody else caught this, but when they were going off the air, they had their little corner box like they always do, but then you actually saw executive producers listed on it. So it was actually giving credits, which is something I don't ever remember WWE doing. Like the only time I've seen them do that is with like their A&E specials. So I was quite shocked to see that they started treating this more like actual episodic television. And then because it was a big episode, they brought out the big guns. They started the night with Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa in a steel cage. After that match, Roman Reigns came down and had this, like, he had one of those segments where you're like, what are they going to do with this character now that he is supposed to be babyface, right? Is he supposed to be different? Is he supposed to be, is he supposed to change to be the good guy? And what we saw were subtle changes in him. He obviously put the hand out, and Nick Aldis handed him the contract, and then he just looked at it and laughed. And then he put the hand out again, and Nick Aldis finally handed him the microphone. When he grabs the microphone, what's he say? He says, I don't change. The tribal chief doesn't change. There's only one tribal chief. So it's the original tribal chief, but it's the only tribal chief. Obviously, this is leading up to him versus Solo in even further battles. But you've noticed that for their next match, it's going to be Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa and I guess Jacob Fatu. And the way that they got there was obviously Cody came down to help Roman, or vice versa. I can't remember exactly how it transpired, but then Roman took the contract, he signed the contract, and then he handed the contract off to Cody. Cody's demeanor when talking to Roman about how it's not his show anymore and things like that in the tit for tat that they kind of gave made Cody look like the heel. And I think it's because when Cody initially said this hasn't been your show since the way that he said it, he's like, this hasn't been your show since WrestleMania. So it was like a little, let me dig that in on you. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Michael Turner says Natty's back, and I think that's a good thing for the women's division. I do too. I think that giving her time off was something good. We'll get to that because that was on Raw. And you know, when I'm talking wrestling by myself versus talking wrestling with Tino, obviously we don't typically go as long, so we don't have to worry about like time or anything like that with it. But when we're talking about SmackDown, it was really a Bloodline and Cody Rhodes focused show. But I want to talk about that other moment. And you guys all know what I'm talking about, and that's Ricky. Kevin Owens, once again, just one-upping himself with the comedy bits. You know, like he basically comes out. He's supposed to have a match against Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. He basically says, I looked far and wide. They're like, you're not going to find a tag team partner because there's no Randy Orton. There's no this guy. There's no that guy. And he goes, I found a tag team partner. I've got a tag team partner. And he brings out Ricky. And Ricky hops in the ring. And he goes, what's your name, kid? And he tells him that it's Ricky. By the way, Ricky is known for being someone in the Upper West Coast area and is a tag team champion in his, like, where he is. I can't remember which wrestling it was, but I actually saw that he's currently a tag team champion out there. But yeah, so he's getting ready to start the match. You know, Kevin Owens is tapping him on the chest. He's slapping him on the chest, trying to work him up for it. And then the woman comes over and she goes, no, Kevin, we just got word that he's here. He's in his gear. He'll be down in a minute. And what does Kevin Owens do? Kevin Owens gets so excited that he stuns his own tag team partner out of the ring. And then we get the Viper, Randy Orton, to come down. I thought it was an absolutely amazing moment. Gave me Santino Marella vibes. Gave me R-Truth vibes. You know, all those. It really was one of those moments that actually did give me a little bit of that heel persona, Stone Cold Steve Austin making me laugh every week vibes. So I was very pleased with that. Then yeah, I like that match went over the way that you expected. If you actually keep up with all of their Instagrams and everything else, there was a video posted afterwards where Randy and Kevin were talking backstage, and Kevin Owens was still praising Ricky for how he stepped up and he wanted to be part of it. And then Ricky comes up and he goes, "Hey, there he is." And he's like, "Why'd you stun me?" And he's like, "Oh man, my bad, man. I just got excited because I heard that Randy was here, and like Randy and I go way back as tag team partners, so I just had to jump into that one." So the whole episode of SmackDown I felt went over really well for their first episode on the new SmackDown on USA Network. They obviously had a new logo. They had a new set. Everything else pretty much the same. The 2 hours seemed to fly by. I don't know if anybody else felt that way or not, but like it seemed like they were going at a fast pace, but yet everything seemed to just keep flying, and yet they still push stories forward. So I thought that the show itself went over very well. Very happy with how it went. So Michael, you were talking a little bit about Raw earlier, so I'm just going to put this graphic up here. I don't really remember too much of what happened on Raw, and I know that sounds bad, but it's like when I'm watching Raw after I get off of this show, and I'm going through it on DVR. The first either half hour, the first hour was commercial free, and yet it just, again, it was like at a blistering pace, and it was still a 3-hour show. So I was very, very shocked by the speed of the shows this week. I didn't get a chance to watch NXT, and I wanted to because obviously with them calling it WWE week, there was some big stuff that was happening. I know that Julia won her first match. So I heard that went over very well. She looks stiff in the ring. She's working a Japanese style so far. They put her against Chelsea Green, which is good because Chelsea's actually known for being able to work that same style. So it was a safe partner for her to work with. But like I mentioned, all the shows seem to move the right direction. Oh, big moment that we have to talk about when it comes to Monday Night Raw. Yes, they were in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, so home of Bret Hart. But we'll get to him in just a second because he did make an appearance on the show. But we did get the return of Natalya. So I do want to talk about that, Michael, because you can tell this is the Triple H era, and you can tell it from one specific thing. If nothing else, you can tell it because when someone's in their hometown, they win. And Chris Barrett, it is still 3 hours currently. It's 3 hours until October 7th, and then from October 7th through January 6th, which I think is the first Netflix show, it's going to be 2 hours. And then Netflix has now said that Raw is going back to 3 hours when it hits Netflix. And I want to talk about that a little bit because I also got some news that I don't have full confirmation on, but I do think it's true. And that's that Raw will have commercials. So, yeah, Michael, so audience, just so you know, even though he called me Rod here, I know it's a quick thumb error, but Natalya coming out and being able to win in her hometown is something that would not occur when Vince McMahon was there. And the reason why was because he knew that you were always going to get the face pop in your hometown. So the best way to get heel heat against that is by having you lose those matches. What's up, Helios? Hope you're having a nice evening. Heard you were going to get your car today. Hopefully that's working out for you. I apologize. Mr. Helios, just so you know, Tino is indisposed because of this weather we're having here in the Raleigh-Durham market. So I'm going it alone. Yeah, we were just talking about Monday Night Raw. We were talking about how Natalya got a hometown win, which would have never happened in the Vince McMahon time frame of WWE. He always so Vince McMahon had two rules, two major in-ring rules that I don't know if everybody knows them, but they were pretty factual, and that was if somebody goes down with injury and someone has to take their place, card subject to change. Someone has to take their place. Vince McMahon would have whoever took the place win the match. So it didn't matter if they were heel, if they were babyface, or whatever. If they replaced someone who was originally advertised for a house show, a television match, pay-per-view, PLE, whatever it was, if they were scheduled in that match, like let's say it was Gunther versus Randy Orton, Gunther goes down with injury and Randy Orton needs an opponent. If they said Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, all of a sudden Cody Rhodes wins that match. And it's crazy because if you think back, he didn't actually have this guy win the match, but got close. Twice, Santino Marella almost won. He almost won the Royal Rumble. He got tossed out last, I believe, one time, and he almost won the Elimination Chamber. And he actually eliminated like everybody in the Elimination Chamber match the year that he got put in like as an alternate because someone got hurt before, like the week before, the night before, or whatever the case might have been. So they didn't have him win that one, but he thought he won. He thought he was the last guy in there, and then someone came in and just like rolled him up for a pin. And I think that happened. Like I said, I think that happened with the Royal Rumble at one point too. Wouldn't that be weird if Santino Marella was actually the runner-up of a Royal Rumble one year? I mean, I'm thinking I'm right. Chris Barrett, you're normally better with remembering those things than I am, but I'm pretty sure that he ended up doing that. And both times I think he was the alternate, like he wasn't supposed to be there and somebody couldn't make it or somebody didn't show up or whatever the case might have been. Yeah. See, so but the idea that Santino actually got and I'm going to tell you, both times that this happened with Santino Marella, that crowd exploded. Like it was like Road Warrior pops because people, and then of course they then realize, oh no, there's still somebody in the match, and then he ends up getting tossed out, or he ends up getting hit with a finisher and losing to like Edge or whatever in that. Yeah, Santino came in second in 2011. So like it just goes to show you that Vince McMahon knows that he could get you to pop anytime he wanted to. And he always knew that. He knew who was. In fact, I think it was on either NXT or on TNA this week that Santino got another nice little pop when his daughter actually showed up and got embarrassed by him because she is Ariana Grace in. Oh my God! Yes. Alberto Del Rio beat Santino. Seems like the crowd pops are more now than they. Well, Michael, there's a couple reasons behind that. I think we all know what those are in most cases. The first one is the international touring that WWE is doing right now. While they're hot means bigger crowds, and those crowds, seeing the other crowds on PLEs, know that if they want to continue to get people, get these PLEs to show up in their hometowns, they have to put on the same kind of performance. So they're hot for like 2 and 3 days now because they'll be there for like the press conference on Friday, then they'll be there for Smackdown, and then they'll be there for the PLE. Like they are bringing every bit of energy that town has to those events. And yeah, thank you, Michael. Yes, it's that part is number one. Now here's the other part. I don't know if you guys saw this week, but some big name people for TKO are saying that the WWE is going to stop doing some of these barely profitable house show events that they have been doing for years. And this very well could mean Madison Square Garden the day after Christmas, which is always a co-branded show, and it's always like their kickoff for the new year. But because it's Madison Square Garden, they're paying top dollar to be in the venue. And now WWE is cutting a bunch of those events. I don't know if Madison Square Garden is being cut or not. They have not announced it for the day after Christmas yet, which is a little surprising considering we're 3 months away. It's also a little bit surprising that we're 3 months away from Christmas because it does not feel like it at all. No, it really doesn't feel like it at all. But Michael, so to the other side of that point, yeah, Chris Barrett, it's always the massive draw. In fact, I think it's going to be 2025. I think it's going to be John Cena's final show if they actually do the MSG show. And if they don't, if they do like the Boston Garden or something like that afterwards, Boston Garden will be his final show because then he gets to go home at home. But the from the American side of things, Michael, the idea there is that if these outside the country crowds are bringing in record gates and they're bringing in record crowds and they're bringing in loud pops, how do those American crowds continue to get those shows and those Smackdowns and those Raws and those NXT events? And the only way they're going to do it is if they also bring the magic when people show up to them. So So Chris, I put your comment up on the screen. I want to go ahead and I'm just going to tackle this one right now. It's tradition. So I completely agree with you that I don't like the idea of them doing it, but I could totally see them going to Albany instead and paying half for the building, allowing the seats to be less expensive. Like rumor is that a lot of these places that are selling out right now, even in the United States, what they're doing is they're putting together smaller production sets so they can fit more people in the buildings. House show revenue is way up. The obviously the Raws and Smackdowns. People were posting pictures of what they said was Smackdown this week, saying that half of it was tarped off. I'm going to say right now that is not going to. That was not when they went live. That was probably as they started letting people sit down. There's no way that SmackDown where they were this week had only half of an arena full. Not when you've got Roman Reigns, not when you've got Cody Rhodes, not when you've got like the first new SmackDown on USA. And yes, they do. Like if anybody here's ever been to a WWE live television event, T, I know that you have. Chris, I'm assuming you have. Michael, I'm sure you have as well. By the way, I see that there's other people in the audience. Go ahead, say hello. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us, subscribe to the YouTube channel, whatever the case might be. Help us grow the business. Buy a T-shirt on TeePublic, do all that stuff. Tino always typically says all that stuff, but we mean it. We'd love to actually start seeing more Potsy and Tino shirts out in the wild. And we do see them in the wild, which is crazy, but we would love to see more of them. Not when you have Vicky Guerrero. Yeah, and I noticed that some people were talking negatively about Vicky Guerrero because of Eddie Guerrero's middle child and how they've kind of distanced themselves from each other, and there's some sort of sexual assault case going on and whatever. So I really don't know what to say about all that. I think Vicky's trying to keep herself out of that realm. The only thing you need to go to is a PPV. So I was just thinking about it, and I got called out on a TikTok live this week. Everybody, my buddy Shavar, who has only been on this show once, maybe twice, giving like WrestleMania predictions with us. He called me out on his TikTok live this week. He's got 200. Last time I checked, he had 270,000 followers, and he asked me straight up. He said, "Are we doing WrestleMania in Vegas next year?" And I said, "I'm in." And so I have started looking up timeshares and things like that because my sister has access to a couple different timeshares, and the plan is right now I could be there as long as the 18th to the 25th of April. I could be there just 4 days, not really sure. But the plan 100% is to be in Vegas. And one of the setups, so Helios, keep this in mind because we were talking about this. One of the setups is a Sleeps 6 and is not going to break the bank. So we'll talk about that off air, but just wanted to throw that out there for everybody else. That right now the plan, and when Shavar asked and he said, "Are you wanting to do Friday, Saturday, so we get to go to the Hall of Fame, we get to go to SmackDown, and we get to go to night one, or do you want to do night two and Monday Night Raw?" And I said, "Don't we have to do all four?" And then he started getting a little antsy about it. So we'll see what we end up picking up in terms of the package plans and whatever that we actually want to do for it. And he even said, "I don't mind if we're in the nosebleeds." And you know what? Neither do I. Like, it'll be my first Mania, so I can sit anywhere the first time. After that, if I go back to a Mania, it's probably going to have to be good seats. But the first one, I can sit anywhere in that arena. And from what I hear, that stadium out there in Las Vegas, I'm going to need like a USB fan or something with me just to keep myself cool. But it does sound like it is one hell of a venue. Actually, it's indoors, so I won't have to worry about that. Or at least I shouldn't have to worry about that, but that's going to be a lot of fucking people. So Chris Barrett says it's all 4 or nothing. Well, I'm not even just saying it's all 4 or nothing because I also want to do the NXT show, which is Saturday afternoon. But let's keep in mind how many different wrestling things are going to be going on in that city that week, not to mention the Fan Fest and everything else they're going to have going on. So I don't know what to anticipate. It'll obviously be the first time that I plan on doing it. And unless something happens with work or something crazy like with personal life or health, I am going to WrestleMania next year. So, and I have been to SummerSlam. I have been to King of the Ring. I have been in the video game because of Over the Limit 2012. Yes, Tino. By the way, if you guys didn't know that, Tino and I are in WWE 2K12, or I think it was just WWE 12 back then. But we were in the game in the audience because they actually scanned in the audiences of the pay-per-views that year. So my first video game appearance was not paid for it, by the way, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm a fat white dude wearing a CM Punk t-shirt sitting next to a black man holding up a sign. That's what we are in the game. But anyways, with that, Raw I felt was a good show. The highlight of the night, and I really wanted Tino to sit here and talk with me about this one, but I will go ahead and talk about it myself. Bret Hart comes out. Bret Hart starts giving, his one of those emotional Bret Hart snooze fests. Sorry, he's never been the best talker. He's been solid on the microphone, but we all knew that he was the excellence of execution in the ring, not on the microphone. But then Gunther comes down just like we thought he would. Gunther comes down, and in perfect heel fashion, he sits there, puts over Bret Hart about as well as you could possibly put over Bret Hart, and then sits there and throws the little heel heat at him by saying he was his second favorite of all time. And the only one that was ever better than him was Bill Goldberg. And what's everybody think? Do we think that Gunther just knew that he could sit there and get away with that? Or do we think that they actually cleared that with Bret Hart? Because Bret Hart was probably sitting there going, fuck Bill Goldberg, the whole time that he knew that line was getting ready to come out if he knew it was coming out. Which, by the way, side note to that, Bill Goldberg sounds very heartfelt in his I feel bad for hurting Bret. Like, I know it's 30 years later or whatever, and yes, it caused Bret Hart to have a stroke, but I don't think you can blame Bill Goldberg for the stroke. I'm going to say that right now. There's no way that Bill Goldberg caused Bret the Hitman Hart's stroke. What caused Bret the Hitman Hart's stroke was the fact that WCW did not have concussion protocol and did not keep Bret Hart from flying when he already had a concussion, which then caused a brain bleed, which caused the stroke. So, Chris Barrett, when you've won 93% of your matches since coming to the WWE, I guess you do get the right to sit there or 97% of the matches that you've wrestled in, you do get to do whatever you want when you're the world champion. Michael Turner says, I think he knew he could get away with it by saying that. I think Bret Hart is just salty. Is just a salty. In everything else, I don't think Bret Hart is a salty old guy anymore. Like he was highly complimentary of Triple H, and that's a first for him because when he was going through the screw job shit, he was sitting there literally saying on a weekly basis that Hunter was part of it, and Hunter being part of it. Now, I might need to take this one down, but I think Bret is a whiny little crybaby about it at this point. It's been over 25 years, and Bill has been nothing but apologetic and heartfelt about the incident. And Bret, and okay, yes, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it, Chris Barrett. I think, it's. I feel like it's kind of like the Stone Cold and Owen Hart thing. Like they talk about how Stone Cold, when Owen did the Tombstone pile driver and dropped him on his head, and gave him that stinger that caused him to need 2 neck surgeries later on in his career. They talk about so the next week Owen came out wearing a Owen 316 I just broke your neck t-shirt. And I don't even think Steve would have been that upset about that, except for the fact that he said that Owen never came to check on him after the match. And coming from a family like the Harts, where, yes, they were meant to be tough guys, but they were also meant to be very safe in the ring, it's hard for me. And by the way, it's not the only time that Owen dropped somebody like that. It's just the only time they got that stinger that, again, caused the neck to wear down over time and caused the need for 2 neck surgeries with Stone Cold. I think it's a lot like that, where Goldberg was so green in the ring, and he wasn't even that green at this point. It's just I don't ever remember seeing him do that axe kick before that, or that super kick before that. Like, I wonder if he was doing it because he was like, hey, with Bret Hart in the ring, I can sit here and do some other cool shit. Like they're telling me I have to go 15 minutes. So here's something I've practiced a little bit. Let's go ahead and add it to the repertoire. And I've watched it, I don't know, millions of times when it comes to the Bret Hart Goldberg thing. And yes, Bret connects with or gets connected in the head by Goldberg's kick. But is it because Brett wasn't expecting a kick that fast? Was it because Brett wasn't expecting his leg to be that long? Is it because because I mean, when you listen to Will Sasso talk about wrestling a match against Bret Hart in WCW, he basically said Bret Hart made it fun, and it didn't even feel like a day of work for me. I just felt like all of a sudden I'm on my back getting counted 1, 2, 3. So Chris Barrett says, I think that there's a difference. I think that the heat between Austin and Owen is because Owen never apologized to him about it. And that's where I think that it's the same, is because Owen never got around to doing that. Obviously, I'm sure that at some point he would have, but Brett's not willing to accept the apology from Goldberg, and I don't know if they've ever stood face to face since that moment to be able to clear the air. Because if you think about it, like hell, I saw this week that Jake the Snake Roberts, when he went to the 2014 Hall of Fame ceremony, he thought he was going to get into a physical altercation with the Ultimate Warrior, but then they actually talked it out, and they just realized, hey, at this point in our lives, why are we angry at each other? And they got past it. And it's a great thing for Jake, because otherwise he'd have that right now, because Warrior's not there anymore. You know? So like, I could see Steve still being a little salty, but it most likely is because they didn't have this 20-year span that over some moment they would have been able to have that talk. And Austin was never the type of guy that would have said, I'm pissed off at you backstage. He just wouldn't talk to you. You know? WCW protocol, like you said, Rob, about flying. And yes, and they just kept making Bret Hart show up to TV, and it caused the blood clot in his brain, and it caused him to have a stroke. Chris Barrett, I think this is by the way, guys, I love this topic, so that's why I'm spending so much time on it. I couldn't agree more. I think that when you think about it, the entire Bret and Goldberg thing is because Chris, you said that he's a crybaby about it. I think Michael Turner agrees with that statement, or maybe not that harsh of a statement, but I do think that if they were to sit down and hash it out, they'd be able to have conversation like men and get through it. I think Bret's willing to admit that Bill Goldberg was greener than he should have been when he actually wrestled him. I think Goldberg's willing to admit that he was trying some new things out because he got told the match was going to go longer. I think that the two of them, I mean, at this point in Bret's life, he has literally accepted everybody else's apology, and he's apologized to everybody else for how he's talked to them. And the only one he doesn't do that with is Bill Goldberg, and I don't get it. Well, Michael, see, that's just it. I think that you're mostly right. It's not like you're going to fly Goldberg up to Calgary, right? Like, you're not going to fly Goldberg up to Calgary because Goldberg might get killed by the other Calgary fans up there. I think that Bret and Goldberg, if they were both at the same like Hall of Fame setting or something, and somebody said, hey, you guys should go talk this out. If you need a moderator, we'll send somebody in there that's not gonna be bad for it. You know, you're not gonna send Jerry the King Lawler in there, because Lawler would just sit there and rile people up until they're actually fighting back there. So you sit there and you just, get three people. Do one of those table for threes. Remember how good that show was on the WWE network? So Barrett says, I think they're both saying the exact same thing. They're definitely not saying the exact same thing, because I think Bret's still saying that Goldberg will not apologize to him, and Goldberg is apologizing to him. Like, he's apologized in every avenue that I've seen recently. And maybe, you know what? Maybe this Gunther dig on Brett this past week on Monday Night Raw, maybe that's the first olive branch. You know, because Brett, to my understanding, wouldn't let anybody say anything about Goldberg around him except in like documentaries and whatever. So the fact that Gunther's sitting there saying something like that and just drawing some heat, you know, I mean, it's classic WWE, and it's great. It's great. I love the table for three, but I'd have Lawler there first, but then said, yeah, yeah. I think you'd have to have someone like Taker there that they both respect, that they both, you know, like know would take care of it. But you know what? At this point, obviously Brett's okay with Triple H. Goldberg's okay with Triple H. Shawn Michaels, same thing. I mean, like these guys. Like, you think about how much heat Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart used to have. If they can hash it out, and Shawn Michaels said, hey, I really think that you ought to listen to Goldberg. You know, like, Bret's probably going to sit there and say, okay, set it up. If he's willing to do it, I'm willing to do it. And if he's not, like, what's that really say about Bret Hart? You know, like, and he to this day is still a lot of these guys' favorite wrestler of all time, like CM Punk. CM Punk is a Bret Hart guy. I mean, he wore the Bret Hart jacket when he went to NXT and said hi to Shawn Michaels, and you know, like, you know, he was doing it to get a little rise out of him, but it's because it's his guy. It's why he uses a sharpshooter from time to time. It's why he uses certain moves that he does from time to time. The second rope jumping elbow, you know, like. Well, Barrett, if it was at a Hall of Fame, then I think you're right. I think the problem you run into when you talk about it being at a Hall of Fame or whatever is the fact that, like, I don't think you'll see Goldberg show up at one of those unless he gets invited specifically to speak on behalf of somebody else. And I don't see that happening with Goldberg because who would he speak up for? Hugh Morris? William Regal? The only other guy that he has like real heat with? And yet he works for WWE. Oh, you were in the crowd for that one? That's pretty cool. I haven't been in a WWE crowd in quite a while. Tino, his daughter Haley, her boyfriend, and I all went to a Monday Night Raw, and we didn't, like, that was probably last year, which is funny because Haley and her boyfriend went to WrestleMania in Philly this year. And I was like, Tino, your daughter gets tickets to WrestleMania and we don't. But, you know, like her other side of the family actually actually works for the WWE. He's one of the people that, like, when you see all those guys come out wearing suits, like, he's not like the Jamie Nobles or those guys that are actually like agents, but he is like one of the pretty high up people that goes and checks on production and everything. So it's always interesting to see that, like, when we go to one of the events and he's there, and you know, like she points him out to us or whatever. But that's how we went to a Monday Night Raw. We sat on the hard cam side. And by the way, like, where AEW like careens off the entire hard cam side, WWE careens off like 4 rows, and that's like it. So, and then before that, we went to the first NXT pay-per-view or PLE back on, I think it was Heatwave. I don't remember, but it was the first one that they did. It was in Charlotte. We went to that one as well. You were on camera side? Yeah, my favorite thing to do is to be about second row of the bleachers on camera. And that's where we were for Sting's last match. That's where we were during Over the Limit 2012. If you actually watch the beginning of that pay-per-view, you'll actually see me holding up my sign for my Twitter handle and everything. So yeah. Let's go ahead and jump into anything AEW that we want to talk about from this week. We got a little bit more with the Moxley heel turn. They gave us a little bit of the Bryan Danielson stuff where they basically said, well, we don't know the next time we'll see Bryan Danielson. And this is where the show got kind of wonky to me. And you guys gotta behind the jail. That nice. How is AEW still AEW? No, Chris, we can't say that because they put on 2 really good pay-per-views. And in fact, every single one of the pay-per-views that they put on are stellar pay-per-views. They put on great wrestling. The problem we're running into is that this is okay. So the statement I made about it was right now it seems like they're doing shock value for shock value instead of shock value for storyline. Okay. The Hangman burning down Swerve's house and then Swerve not setting him on fire or it not being an Inferno match or things like that. That was a problem that I had with that stuff because as great of a moment as that was and as good of a storyline as that's been, that had more impact on me than the syringe in his mouth. Like, did they even talk about that on Wednesday? I don't know. Like, were we supposed to assume that it was LSD? Were we supposed to assume it was a drug? Well, I don't know what the plan was there. The Daniel Bryan thing, Bryan Danielson, where they choked him out with the plastic bag. The way it looks like it's, like they immediately on one of the other shows, they talked to Wheeler Yuta, and Wheeler Yuta sitting there saying, I tried to talk to Daniel. I couldn't talk to him. I'm hoping he's home with his family, blah, 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 this, that, the other, all that bullshit. Jon Moxley comes out. Jon Moxley sits there, brings out Darby Allin. Darby Allin sits there and has a world title match. And Jon Moxley looks at him and goes, I need you to just give me that world title match. You don't know what's going on. You need to give me that title match. And I don't really understand what the whole point of that is. And then where I really got confused was when Nigel McGuinness comes out and says that he wants Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam, which means that Bryan Danielson's going to wrestle another match before he even has his comeuppance at all against the Blackpool Combat Club. If that's even what we're calling them at this point. Now, you guys all watched last week on this show when I said I think that the reveal of what's going on with Jon Moxley and everything is going to be on the 9/25 episode of Dynamite, which is also the launch of the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix called Mr. McMahon. So I do totally anticipate that being the case. And no one else has said it. No one else has talked about it. No one else said anything one way or another about any of that stuff on any broadcast that I have seen anywhere. No Busted Open, no Dave Meltzer, no Wade Keller, nothing. So you heard it from us. If it comes to fruition, Tino and I talked about it first. Now, I laid it out there. Tino loved the idea, so we ran with it, and that's what we're saying is going to happen. I joke that I want Shane McMahon to come out if he is going to come out at AEW Dynamite and call himself Mr. McMahon, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I just joke about that one. So, other than that, when it comes to AEW, I really don't remember much else of what happened during the show. And unfortunately, I haven't watched Collision or Rampage in I don't know how long. And I know that the wrestling is good on Collision. But it's gotta so the person that they're talking about has to be a big deal person. I actually joked that what if it was Nigel McGuinness? What if Nigel McGuinness has his match with Bryan Danielson and he joins the Blackpool Combat Club? It's not outside of the realm of possibility, considering he is British and he hates Bryan Danielson. So what if he got into the head of Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta's going to have to make a decision. And I think Wheeler Yuta gets kicked out, and Pac also is not American. So I think that's where you see like the main portions of that group. But at the same time, I think that there's too many quote unquote super groups. Chris Barrett, so hepatitis B is something that is controllable, and to my knowledge, now has a cure drug. So it is very possible that over the course of time, Nigel McGuinness has gotten cured of hepatitis B. I think the drug is called Descovy. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to look it up really quick, actually. Let's see. So hepatitis B treatment depends on severity of it. So the condition often clears up on its own. Chronic cases need medication and possibly a liver transplant. So the medications are antiviral drugs. Basically an interferon. So what that basically means is that, yes, you can actually recover from hepatitis B. Hepatitis C, hepatitis A, heck, there's actually a hepatitis G at this point, believe it or not. And I know more about this stuff than I probably need to at this point in my life because I don't work at LabCorp anymore. But yeah, the hepatitis G is the one you don't want to look up and don't want to read about, by the way. But all the other ones, to hepatitis A, I think, is the one that is incurable. Hepatitis C is curable and something that anybody who has ever so it kind of goes hand in hand with HIV. So a lot of people that have gotten hepatitis C have gotten it because of using dirty needles. So no, interferon is not. There's really, really expensive drugs out there that help people get cured of hepatitises. I'm trying to think of what the ones that we actually worked with were at this point. I can't remember most of the names of them, but they're about $1,000 per pill, and you have to take them for like 90 days. So it's like $100,000 medication. But a lot of the people that end up with hepatitis C also have the HIV virus, which is why I think back in the day, a lot of people, when it came to pro wrestlers having hepatitis, they were worried that they might not be showing signs of HIV at the same time. Gerald Gang, thank you for chiming in the chat, but we're not looking for cheap viewers. We're looking for viewers with money. So with that, that's the only notice you'll get of being somewhere on this. You might be right, Chris. I like I said, there's at least 4 different hepatitises now. Hepatitis B is curable on its own as long as it's not terrible. Hepatitis C does require medication. You take it for 3 months in most cases. Sometimes it actually takes like a ribavirin or something that you have to take as well to go with it. It's weird. But anyways, so I think that while Nigel McGuinness probably only has like maybe 2 more matches in him, he's a good talker. So I could totally see him being that position that they originally wanted William Regal to be in, especially since 3 weeks ago I was sitting here saying you can't have Jon Moxley turning heel and the Blackpool Combat Club staying heel or staying babyface, you have to have the group turn on Bryan Danielson, and that's what they've done at this point. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we're talking about that. Yes. You're 100% right. Like if you get it. So okay. The reason why some people end up having, like, you could have hepatitis C in your system right now, but it might not even flare up. Sometimes your levels of what it is in your system can flare up based on like drinking habits and things like that. At the same time, you can also find yourself being able to live with it or die from it, because if it actually does affect your liver badly enough, it can cause you to die. The medications that you take for it are to bring your levels down. I can't remember what the term for it is called, but to bring your levels down on it to where it basically becomes like unseen on screenings. And if it becomes unseen on screenings, then you're technically cured from it. The reason why people end up seeing it in a myriad of ways is because a lot of the people that end up with it, like I said, are from bad drug needles and whatever, which means if they go back to using, heroin or anything like that, then they find themselves getting infected with it multiple times. That's why, like in a lifetime of a person's lifetime, you can only like request the drugs for it twice. You can request them a third time if there's outstanding factors, like for whatever reason you didn't finish treatment, but it wasn't your fault, things like that. But in most cases, you can only be prescribed those drugs twice in your lifetime. And it's because, one, they're too expensive, and two, it's because if you haven't learned after the second time of getting cured from the disease, at that point, like the government doesn't want to take those moments with you at that point. I got a spider on my wall, and he's a pretty good sized one. And unfortunately, he's dead now. So, with that, anyways, how about back to wrestling? How about that? Dynamite, Rampage, Collision. I don't really have anything else to say about any of those. Since I started my job, I always have something playing on in the background, TV wise, and I've been watching Warehouse 13. Don't know if you guys have actually watched Warehouse 13, but one of the things that I thought was pretty funny was one of the episodes that was on in the background today. All of a sudden, I heard a very familiar voice. I look over, and there's Cody Rhodes actually acting on an episode of that. Thought that was pretty funny. So, and for those that don't know, Warehouse 13 is basically like an X-Files like show mixed with a little bit of the artifacts that you have from Indiana Jones. So it's two Secret Service agents that go all around the world trying to get back missing artifacts from history that have special abilities and special powers, and then they put them in a warehouse which looks just like the warehouse from the Indiana Jones movies. So it's on. I'm watching it on, I think, Freevee right now. I think it's on Prime, but it's their free portion. So it's got commercials and stuff. So the episodes actually do take an hour to watch. But again, it's in the background while I'm at work. So but like I said, it had Cody Rhodes on an episode. And then while I was watching Billions, the final season, they had Triple H in an episode as well. So it was, and for those that don't know, if you've never watched Billions, they have wrestling Easter eggs thrown throughout the entire series. And it amazes me at how smart the show was, considering how obviously, like, when we think about how people feel about pro wrestling, a lot of times they don't give pro wrestling credit for being good storytelling or whatever. They always call it the male soap opera. So the idea that the writers on Aaron Sorkin's show are sitting there like, talking about Georgie Animal Steel, or there was an episode where one of the characters gave a gift to Dan Soder, who is a huge pro wrestling fan, but he's also a comedian. He played a guy named Maffei on the show. He's like the pothead that is also the investment banker, investment trader, and when someone's trying to make good on something because they lost a bet or whatever, they buy him, they get him a signed, autographed poster of the Highway to Hell SummerSlam, which was Steve Austin versus The Undertaker, and it's autographed by both of them, and he's just like blown away by it. So he's on par with Will Sasso in terms of his Macho Man impression. So if you've never seen his Macho Man, it's really good. Anyways, folks, we're sitting here at 10 o'clock. It does not look like we're going to get Tino on the air tonight. I am about tapped out. Gotta be honest. I haven't been sleeping well. I think I'm getting ready to try something other than just my CPAP in terms of I didn't talk about the craziest thing that was up with me this week. So I'm going to jump back into a what's up with you before I hop off of here and let everybody know that you watch real soap operas. That's funny. My mom calls them her stories. So last thing before I head out of here, obviously I've already talked about even the TV shows that I've been watching recently, but the last thing I'll let everybody know is that my debit card this week was compromised, and the second time it's ever been compromised, but the first time in probably 20 years, and it's interesting because I have been doing some purchases that aren't really out of the ordinary for me. I mean, obviously I bought my monitor just recently, bought my PC recently, bought my new office chair recently, stuff like that. But I did just buy some new t-shirts that are for conventions so that I can sit there and wear like Die Hard t-shirts as I get ready to roll that title out. And I bought stickers. And other than that, like 3 weeks ago, I drove all the way down to the one convention that I was going to. I don't remember where it was now. Oh man. The one convention I just did recently. And the Brothers Boyd convention. Yeah. So I drove down there for that, and I went to pay for something with my debit card and it wouldn't go through. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And my new phone wasn't giving me voicemail confirmations or anything. So I called my voicemail and I checked just to see if I had a bank statement thing on there. And it said, we need you to call the bank before we open up your card again to figure out whether or not you had any of these charges. So I called them up and they're like, yeah, we just want to go over a couple of these charges. So it was like 3 things from like Grubhub, and one of them was from Uber Eats, which I don't normally use, but I think one of the places that I ordered from and ordered delivery from, like a pizza place, uses Uber Eats. So I approved all of those, but there were some weird like 31-cent charges and different stupid shit like that. And I was like, I don't ever charge 31 cents or anything, but it's not enough for me to sit there and think one way or another about. Well, this Thursday, I sit there and while I'm just sitting there watching TV, I don't even remember what I was watching, my phone goes bzz, 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 and I look at it, and it's not a call, it's a voicemail sitting there and again, it's from my bank telling me that they've cut off my card because they want me to verify some charges. So this time when I call in, and like I said, I just made like 3 charges, one for stickers, one for t-shirts, one for the office chair. Oh, and then one for like low carb snacks because I when I'm sitting at work, I prefer low carb snacks so I get fiber and whatever. But regardless of that, so I call them up and they go, "All right, did you make this charge to Amazon?" "Yes, I did." "Did you make this charge to Amazon?" "Yes, I did." They then go, "Did you make this charge to United Airlines?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Okay, that one was $676 or something." And I'm like, "Jesus Christ, what the fuck?" Right? Then I get then they go, "Okay, what about this one for $1,273 to United?" And I'm like, "No." Like I and they're like, "Have you ever used United Airlines?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll obviously put a dispute on that." And here's what made it even weirder for everybody. By the way, check your bank accounts, see if you've got like little onesie twosie things that you don't normally notice on your bank accounts. Like this really has me thinking I need to go back to actually like balancing a checkbook on this shit. But they tried to pull like $2,000 out of the account. Luckily, the day before, I had paid all my bills and moved money out of the checking account into the savings account so that way I have like it's not while it's attached to the debit account, it's not what you get by going and using it for debit. So they took all the money out of one account and they couldn't take any of the money out of the other account. So I still had money. So I was still okay. But I don't even know what made me think to do that because I normally leave everything in my checking account because that's actually I don't even know why they call the other one a savings account at this point because it's got a lower interest rate than the other one. Anyways, but it saved me this time because it left me with actual funds and everything else. Uh, yeah. So Chris, I'm the same way. Like the balancing of the checkbook and whatever. I did that when I was younger, but as soon as I had a debit card, balancing the checkbook went out the window. Like I stopped doing that like forever ago. I keep up with how much I've got in there. I check my balance like every day, whatever. And so I filed the disputes. I did everything with the number that came in on my voicemail. So there I was like, okay, I think I've this is supposed to be the fraud department, everything else. But here's what's crazy. They ask you for things like your date of birth, the last four of your social, all the numbers that somebody who is trying to steal your identity is going to want. And the reason why it's weird to me is because the next morning at 7:30 in the morning, because my bank does 7 to 7 banking, I call them up at 7:30 in the morning, get someone on the phone, and the first question she asks is, well, did you file disputes on those charges? The fuck do you mean did I file? Like, how do you not know? Oh, well, that's a different department. What? So do you know if I did or not? Or did I give my information to somebody else so they can keep stealing my identity for the rest of my life now? And I don't know the answer to the question. Like, they canceled that card. Luckily, I can walk into my bank and actually get a brand new debit card that day, which blows my mind that that's something you can actually do now is just walk into the bank and get a debit card. Because it used to be, oh, you got to wait 7 to 10 business days. Well, I got to wait 7 to 10 business days to get my money back. I got to wait 7 to 10 business days to get a debit card. Like, what am I supposed to do if I have bills to pay? Yeah, the not checking your balances and stuff like that. That's probably not a good idea there, Chris. So I'm just going to say that, and that's why I'm offering these suggestions to everybody to check that stuff. Get out there, take a look at your bank, take a look at your accounts, and honestly, the other thing that you should probably do is move money into multiple banks. Like I'm not saying put it into crypto. I'm not saying but put it into money market accounts. Put it into things that actually are going to get good interest rates. But put it in different banks so that way, as long as your money's safe and it's not being hacked, it's not being stolen, then you should be okay. Like the thing that makes me really weird about all of this is that I just got that debit card that got hacked 2 months ago. Like literally, it came in June and it's been hacked already. My last one I had for years and was never hacked. In fact, I had to get it replaced because you couldn't read the numbers on the back of it anymore because they stopped imprinting the cards with the numbers and now they just print them on the back of the card. So I don't know. I just give everybody the warning there. Luckily, it doesn't look like anything else had been compromised, but I really should take a look at like my Bank of America credit card and things like that, because when the debit card isn't working, that's the card that typically gets used. But for that, everybody, as you can see, it says buy the new book on Amazon. Just search my name, Rob Pochak. I want to go ahead, thank everybody for participating in the chat. You guys are great as always. If you're not following my TikTok, I do go live on TikTok playing games and stuff now. I really love to get some people actually in the audience when I do that. It's kind of like sporadic, but I am thinking I'm going to start doing it about an hour before I do this show. And for that, you can look me up, Rob Potsy Pochak, just like one of my Instagram accounts, just like Twitch, Rob Potsy Pochak. If you want to follow Tino is Tino Gray Music or Tino G Music on TikTok. He's Hootie Fan 91 on Twitter. He's SC Tino on TikTok or on Instagram. 99 for the we want to thank Adam's House Cat for the wrestling song every week. 99 Jones once again. Yes, there was. I saw a really good Taz thing this week where somebody actually had a tattoo of Taz, and Taz was kind of creeped out by it. Michael Cole and him had a really good conversation about it at one point. But yeah, on Twitter, I'm Pochak. On Facebook, we're the Potsy and Tino Show. Here on YouTube, we're Rob Pochak. On TikTok, like TikTok and Twitch, it's Rob Potsy Pochak. Would love to have more followers on the TikTok. Would love to have you guys in the stream. They offer and allow for like bringing other guests onto that one. So if you guys want, you're definitely welcome to join in when I am either streaming WWE Supercard or streaming Gears of War 5. There's probably going to be some other games coming up shortly, like Dragon Age Veilguard, which comes out, I guess, next month. And then I'll probably also on my Twitch account be broadcasting the Alan Wake downloadable content when that comes out next month as well. So, folks, I am calling it a night. I want to thank everybody who hopped in, said hi. If you didn't say hi, still want to say thank you. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe on YouTube, give us a follow on Twitch, and I will see everybody next time. Yep, thanks, guys. Really appreciate everybody in the audience, and I will see you next week.